of this year's Tour of Italy. You arrive live with us just as the peloton gets to the Giro point of today's stage, a little town called Susa, some 145.5 kilometers down today's route of 190. A very important point for the Quick-Step team, because of course they've got men lying right up front in the general classification of that particular stretch of the competition, and it looks like they've got some more vital points there. Zanini is the current leader, and I think he managed to consolidate his lead. But just to give you a quick rundown of what's happened on this, the last mountain stage of the Tour of Italy, this stage finishing up in Sestriere, where they actually go twice. They go up there first, they've done that already, and then do a huge loop, a distance of 190 kilometers, 119 miles. There was a very early break of two riders that became three riders, and the three were Grisha Niemann of Rabobank, Mark Renshaw, the Olympic champion, riding for Française des Jeux, and Ruslan Ivanov for Domina Vacanze. And the peloton didn't seem terribly obliged to do anything about it. A very fast start by the three. They did over 44 kilometers in the first hour, and the peloton at one stage was over 17 minutes behind the three. But when they got to the start of the first climb, taking them up to Sestriere, the ski resort high up in the Alps, for the first time, Renshaw was very quickly struggling, and he went off the back of Niemann and Ivanov. These two continued alone and made a good fist of it, getting to Sestriere together with Renshaw there at 6 minutes 40, and the peloton slightly closer at 14 minutes and 35 seconds. Well, the gaps have closed a little bit further since then. They've been through the feed zone. You've just seen the peloton go through the Giro competition, and in fact I can tell you that Mark Renshaw has now been caught back by the peloton, but they are still around about 9 or 10 minutes behind the two leaders, although when we last heard, Niemann was in a spot of trouble. In fact, I'm just getting a latest time check. It's come down to 7 minutes and 45 seconds. And Niemann struggling to stay with Ivanov, who has looked slightly the better of the two on the climb, certainly the first climb up to Sestriere. But they're now on this big loop that will take them ultimately back to Sestriere after they've done another new climb called the Finestre. So, stage 19 then of this Giro d'Italia. It finishes in Milan tomorrow. Today's stage taking them to Sestriere, a distance of 190 kilometers, 119 miles. And the peloton slowly but surely closing the gap on two leaders, Messrs Niemann and Ivanov. Grisha Niemann for Rabobank, Ruslan Ivanov for Domina Vacanze, and another glorious sunny day here on the Giro d'Italia. Well, this remaining part of the stage is the point where that man there, Gilberto Simoni, has somehow got to make a move if he is to get a third victory in this Giro d'Italia. As a result of the time trial, he now starts this penultimate day 2 minutes and 9 seconds in arrears of Paolo Savoldelli, who's now been in the pink jersey for just about a whole week now. And Savoldelli, of course, out today to watch for all attacks from the likes of José Rujano, who's in third place, one of the revelations of this race, and Danilo Di Luca, the Liquigas man, who was in a podium spot but suffered a little in the time trial, lost time yesterday, and indeed lost a possible podium place. But the difference in time between Savoldelli and even Juan Manuel Garate at 3 minutes 13 seconds in fifth place is not something that necessarily will remain static come the end of the day. We expect big attacks on the last two climbs, and the first of them, I mentioned the Finestre, the Colle della Finestre, which they're just about to start on now. And this is a real brute of a climb, which is appearing in the Giro d'Italia for the very first time. And it has a unique quality in as much as for the last 20, 30 odd years or more, I should think, the Grand Tours have not been over unsurfaced roads. It was much a feature, of course, of the early tours of both France, Italy and Spain, but most roads are tarmacked these days. But going back to the old days, certainly before the Second World War, many of the climbs were unsurfaced. Well, the top half of the climb up to the Colle della Finestre is unsurfaced. It's a hard, compacted clay surface. We've seen pictures of it, and it looks as though there are quite a few stony sections on top of the clay. It could well be a big problem for the riders. The other thing, of course, is the gradient. The average gradient of this climb, believe it or not, is 9.2%, which is 1 in 11 all the way up. There are places where it's much steeper than that. At one point it reaches 14%, which is what, about 1 in 7? And on the high part of the climb, well, there again, the last 7.9 kilometres, almost 5 miles, that's the unsurfaced part. There is a section there which is also about 1 in 9. So that is going to be a big problem on the upper stretches of this climb. And then, of course, there's a short descent before they start their second climb up to Sestriere, the second climb of the day, which takes them to the finish. So, having brought you up to date, time to introduce Sean Kelly. Sean, a fascinating day, particularly because there are still a lot of possibilities in the overall classification, and the fact that we've got this most unusual climb that the riders are just starting on, the Finestre, as well as a second climb up to Sestriere. It could all blow to pieces in the next hour, 2 hours to the finish.
Yes, it certainly will blow a lot, and it's already blown to pieces here. We can see the rider here, Iliano, who is setting a very fast pace from the Savigliano team, and for Rujano, of course, because he's up there in the general, and we're just wondering, what's he really going to do today? Is he satisfied with the position he have and just follow, or will he go in the attack? And it looks very much like that they're trying to shake up this thing, and even trying to maybe shake Simoni the way they're going about it at the moment. But definitely Savoldelli in trouble here, like, once again, to follow that fast attack by Iliano and Rujano, and he's just again setting his pace as we see him doing a number of times. Savoldelli seems to like to do that. He just leaves the thing go and then just starts working on his pace and hopefully hold it at a minimum and maybe come back on these guys later in the climb.
Rujano's been the revelation of this tour for me, and I think for you as well. We never expected this little fella from Venezuela, who rides for Savigliano Colombia, to ride quite as well as he has done. It's not been a flash in the pan. Whenever we've come to the mountain stages, in the Dolomites and now here in the Alps, he's always been there. He's clinched the King of the Mountains competition now. Nobody can beat him in that. The question is, can he surprise everybody and shake off Simoni and Savoldelli? He's only 3 minutes off what would be an impossible dream, winning the Tour of Italy.
Yes, and he's definitely had a fabulous race here and really finishing very strong. I think the last week or 10 days, it's amazing how strong he's been, because he went in breaks with the intention of taking the mountain jersey and going for that classman. But I think you see then that he was staying away in the breaks and holding on to the finish and pulling back time, and moved up a long ways from where he was in the general staff into the last week of this tour, and now he's up there in that position. So, a third position in the race, definitely a podium very possible, but it looks like that he's trying to do a bit more, because the way they went about on this on the start of this climb, they really attacked, and we see Iliano setting a very, very fast pace, so they must have intentions of trying to see can they just blow this race apart as well. So it's not only Simoni is out of that intention today.
There's a lot of pressure now on Savoldelli here as they start this climb, and it's rather ironic that the lower stretches of this climb, this new climb, the Finestre, looks as though it's fresh tarmac. They obviously ran out of money and couldn't get tarmac all the way to the top. Maybe that'll come within the next year or two. It looks really nice here. But Savoldelli is under great pressure here, is he not? Because the attack has come very, very early. This is a long climb, an arduous climb, the top bit, which we've talked about, unsurfaced. This is going to show us whether he's got the heart for this battle today, isn't it?
Yes, that is the big question, with the advantage he has in the general classement. If you look down over Simoni, of course, 2 minutes and 9 seconds is going to be enough. A lot of people are saying that he needs 2.5 minutes to be able to hold on. So the question is, will he be able to do that today? I think it's going to be very difficult for him to hold this jersey today.
Well, we've already seen it begin to split up, and I fear, Sean, that when we get higher up on the climb, there are going to be some big gaps the pink jersey has already lost around about 15 seconds. But, you know, we've talked in the past, Sean, about how Miguel Indurain used to find himself in these situations, and he never panicked. He would just stay in there, stay focused, and gradually haul himself back into contention. Do you think that Paolo Savoldelli is able to do what we saw Miguel Indurain do so many times?
I think he's that style of rider, certainly. You know, he's a big bloke. We can see him. He sits in the saddle a lot and just powers away. And he set out to do the same as Indurain, but I don't know if he's as powerful, because, as we know, Miguel was very powerful. He would just sit there and riders would attack, and he'd just keep on riding, and they'd do maybe a kilometre or half kilometre in the front, and they would come back and another one would go, and he'd just keep on doing that. I don't think we can put Savoldelli in that category as strong as that, but that's definitely the same style as Indurain.
Well, Simoni put his cards on the table very, very early on in this tour. In fact, before the tour, as we see him in our picture now with Rujano glued to his wheel, he said, "I want a third Tour of Italy." He still, of course, can do exactly that. 2 minutes and 9 seconds is the gap he has to close over Savoldelli. There is plenty of time for him to do it today. There's no question of that. Meantime, the two leaders up the road have split. We've heard that further up the road, Ivanov is now on his own, higher up the climb. Niemann has been dropped. Those are the two leaders. Renshaw, who was with them earlier, remember, is now back in the peloton and has probably done his bit for the day, I imagine. The Savoldelli group, just about 15 seconds or so, maybe 20 seconds now, behind the group which contains his two immediate challengers, Messrs Simoni and Rujano. And I noticed that Ivan Basso was up in that lead group as well, Sean, so his two-stage victories was certainly no fluke. You can't get two more contrasting victories in consecutive stages than a hefty mountain stage 2 days ago, and then a comparatively short 34-kilometre time trial. Marvellous, marvellous recovery from Ivan Basso.
Yes, an unbelievable recovery. We were saying that he probably could recover, but the way he did recover, really impressive, and winning the mountain stage, which is his strong point. He's a very good climber, but winning the time trial yesterday, that's something which was a little bit of a surprise to a number of us. I did not think that he was that strong, but he has definitely improved in time trialing. But it shows that he is he's recovered 100% certainly.
I remember us talking nearly 12 months ago on the Tour de France about the fact that Basso's time trialling was his weak point and could possibly inhibit him from ever becoming a Tour de France winner. We said that when we were on the Tour de France last year. Given that he's clearly worked very hard at it over the winter, and he's had two marvellous performances in the two long time trials here, a second and a first, does that suggest to you that he is now a potential Tour de France winner?
Yes, it certainly does, because if we look back at last year in the Tour, he was very strong in the climbs, and there was a number of times there which Armstrong, he was climbing very strong and had Armstrong under pressure maybe in the first mountain stage, but in the time trials he was losing it. But he has turned that about and became a very good time trialist. And I think I was looking at some of the interviews this morning with Barnarees. He was saying they did a lot of work on his training, his aerodynamics as well. They did some studies in the tunnel, the wind tunnel of course, but he rode a lot on the bike this year, the low profile bike. When they were out looking at these mountain stages of the Giro, he rode his bike a lot, his time trial bike actually, during those stages, just to get used to using the bike more. That's what Barnarees said, that he needed to do that. He wasn't comfortable on the bike, and descending as well when it was down, he was losing a lot of time. But yesterday he said in the last 5 kilometres he never see Basso going as fast.
Well, he went faster than anybody else, and you can't do better than that. Incidentally, there was one little footnote to that ride yesterday. You might recall that we saw at one stage, bizarrely, I thought, one of the Panaria riders, Tirolongo, hand up a bottle to Basso. I have never seen that happen in a time trial before, let alone between two men from different teams. And Basso was actually fined 100 Swiss francs for taking that bottle to Tirolongo. I don't have any note in the communiques of Tirolongo himself being fined. I rather feel, for equanimity's sake, that he should have been fined as well for offering the bottle. But Basso got fined 100 Swiss francs.
Well, yeah, it was really surprising yesterday when when he caught up with Tirolongo, and he just Tirolongo handed the bottle to him very quickly. How did Tirolongo know that he needed the bottle? That was we were wondering that, and did he shout at him as he was coming? Basso maybe said, drink or something like that. But it's amazing how quick that Tirolongo reacted, how quickly he reacted, and able to hand up the bottle to him. But a small price to pay, because if he hadn't had a bottle for a number of kilometres, he would have been in trouble maybe later.
Well, he's in a bit of trouble now,
yes,
because Basso has actually just fallen off the back of that group. Paying for his efforts over the last 2 days, maybe?
Yes, well, of course, he's put in a big effort the last 2 days, and we were, today we're wondering would he go for another stage because the way he's been going. But when you make an effort like that after being sick as well, I suppose it can, pay a little bit a price for that.
Well, there's a group here, Sean, of around about 12 or 13 riders only, and it is mainly Simoni and Rujano who are pressing ahead. We hear that they are now 24 seconds ahead of the Savoldelli group, with Basso here just a little bit further down. There's confirmation, 24 seconds for the Simoni-Rujano group. Now this is proving very, very crucial. There's a long way to go at this climb. Then there's a short, sharp descent, and by the way, the descent is surfaced, strangely enough, even though the last 8 kilometres on this side are not, as you will see for yourselves. And then, of course, there's the push up to the finish to Sestriere, the ski resort there, which has the unique record of being a stage finish for both the Tour of Italy stages and indeed Tour de France stages. Both races have been there on a number of occasions. So far as the Tour of Italy is concerned, it was last there in 2000 when Jan Ruška was the stage winner for the Czech Republic. And the last time it was there in the Tour de France was 1999, when Lance Armstrong won the stage and went on to win one of his 6 tours. Danilo Di Luca there alongside the man who has most to gain by this breakaway from the pink jersey succeeding. Di Luca, of course, is anxious to get a podium place back. He didn't ride a very good time trial yesterday, and he's just 8 seconds behind Rujano for a podium place. In 4th, Rujano in 3rd, Simoni in 2nd, of course, and Savoldelli, there he is, in the pink jersey. There could be a total change around come the end of the day. This always promised to be the grand climax of this year's Giro d'Italia, and already, Sean, even though we've got some way to go to the top of this climb, let alone to Sestriere, it looks like they're going to give us the grandstand finish that we were looking for.
Yes, certainly are, and given it is at the moment, but I think Sestriere climb, it would be too late for the likes of Simoni and the other riders to attack there. So they've gone in the attack on this Col de Finestre. And they're definitely going to try, take time out of Savoldelli. The interesting one is to see how much Savoldelli will limit his losses on this climb. It's growing slowly, as we said, 24 seconds the last time check, and if he gets riders, as we see here, to start working with him, start making the pace in the front, well, that will help Savoldelli a lot. And if he can keep it, 30-40 seconds on the descent, I think Savoldelli will take a lot of risk, because there's 10 kilometres of a descent, and it's quite a technical one. He can put a lot of time back there, and maybe get back up again to Simoni before the final climb to Sestriere.
Well, we're just getting news that it's extended to 30 seconds now, and clearly Gilberto Simoni here means business. Di Luca is staying with him very nicely. There's confirmation as we have picture the 2 different pictures for you. Simoni attacking on the left of our screen, and on the right the pink jersey group, including Savoldelli amongst others. On the right hand side of the screen, Savoldelli with other riders for support here, but once again no Discovery team men with him, and that has been the story really throughout the race, as we see him just having a word back to the team car. He's been without support. He's had to do this all on his own, unlike his teammate Lance Armstrong in this Discovery Channel team, who has had such wonderful support during his 6 Tour de France victories, and indeed, Sean, we'll be looking to Savoldelli to support him when we get to the Tour de France at the beginning of July.
Yes, well, of course, you know, the Discovery Channel, they base a lot of their season around the Tour of France, and to have riders really in top shape for the Tour. And of course, to do the classics also, we must not forget, you know, George Hincapie, he does a number of the classics, so he's had a rest period after the classics, and then he'll be, you know, building up again for the Tour of France. And I don't think they expected Savoldelli to be as good a shape as he was. I think they're surprised as well in the team that he's out here, you know, the second last day in the pink jersey, with a very good chance of winning. I don't think they ever expect to see that, so it's a bit of a surprise for them as well. If they had known that, I think they might have put in some better climbers to give Savoldelli some help in the mountain stages.
Yeah, I still would have expected to see the likes of Pavel Padnos and maybe Benoit Joachim giving him help a little bit on the lower slopes at least. After all, they have been the ones, amongst others, like George, of course, for instance, who we have seen giving Armstrong good support in the mountains, but they've been, how can I put this, they've been conspicuous by their absence on the crucial mountain stages.
Yes, well, I don't think they're in the best of shape. They're not at 100% certainly. You know, we see Padnos in the Tour, the way he can ride for, you know, kilometre after kilometre, 100 kilometres in front on the mountain stages, and still get up a lot of the climbs and be there quite late in the stage. So it proves that he's not in good a shape as we've seen him in the Tour de France. But that's understandable as well. He cannot be really, you know, going to 100% now and expect to be going as good as he was in the past years in the Tour de France once again. So I think it's a little bit that everybody is, you know, a bit surprised. Even the Discovery Channel, Savoldelli himself, for example, I think everybody's a little surprised about how well he's ridden in this race.
Well, this is the Simoni group, and you just saw some of the big names on the screen there, confirming that most of the big names behind Savoldelli are in this group, not necessarily all of them. Carpets is there, Garate is there, Di Luca is there. Missing, though, I didn't see Sega Honchar's name, and I didn't see Dario Cioni's name. I rather suspect that they have missed the Simoni Rugano group, so they could be losing a little bit of ground in the general classification. In the meantime, though, whilst we watch them fighting it out on the climb, we've got Christy Anderson on the phone. Christy, a fascinating situation here as they get higher up the climb to the Colle della Finestre. What was the feeling that you got from the start this morning about the 2 minutes and 9 seconds that Simoni had to gain on Savoldelli if he were to win this Tour of Italy? What was the feeling? Was 2 minutes and 9 enough for Savoldelli or not?
Well, I don't think so, really. I think Simoni can do it. This is the last climb, and he's obviously going very well. He's looking very supple, and it looks to me like he's possibly working a bit with Di Luca on this climb. On the last climb, it may change, and he may be just alone with Rujano. But I spoke to Marco Bellini this morning of Sellitalia, and I think Rujano is a real danger man at this moment.
Yeah, we were just discussing the possibility of Rugano producing one of the great upsets of all time in major tours. He started the day just 3 minutes behind Savoldelli, and he's up with Simoni now. Crucially, though, there's a gap of 51 seconds between Simoni and Rugano. Surely Simoni is not going to let Rugano close that 51 seconds gap on him.
Absolutely. I think Simoni is going to try to win the stage, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Rujano make a real effort, and he's such a specialist, and, you know, he's weighing less than 50 kilos. I think he could do it, but Simoni knows that this is it. If he wins this stage, and if he can take the pink jersey, he's got it in Milan. So I think he's possibly a little bit hungrier than Rujano. But it is nice to see a rider from a team of a budget of maybe 1/10 of the big teams out there really distinguishing himself. And he's been so consistent and steady throughout the mountains. I would like to see Rujano really attack Simoni on the last climb and have an honest go at it.
You might well see that happen. We shall see. But what about the Discovery Channel camp, Christy? Do you think they're a little bit nervous this afternoon?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Michael, but My prognostic for this day would be definitely that Simoni is the one who will take the stage. It was nice to see that Basso kind of backed off and didn't thwart Savoldelli by helping Simoni. But it definitely looks like Di Luca is in there working together with Simoni, at least to the bottom of the final climb.
Okay, I was just asking about the Discovery Channel when we didn't have such a good contact on the line, whether they were feeling a bit nervous about this stage and maybe wondering themselves whether 2 minutes and 9 seconds was enough.
Well, you know, I think Savoldelli would be nervous on his own. I mean, clearly none of his teammates can even follow him, so they're of no help to him. I mean, I was just commenting to the people around me that you never see Lance Armstrong alone on a climb like this, certainly not the second to last climb of the day. You would never see him without 2 or 3 people around him to help him from his team, and it really surprises me how little support Savoldelli has had on this Giro d'Italia. It seems like they really didn't even put the team together with the idea toward climbing. They just kind of put a bunch of strong guys because they had to be here for the Pro Tour. But it doesn't seem like they've got anybody there, and he's on his own. So I really think he's done for.
Oh, well, it's a little early to say done for, but he's certainly in a bit of trouble. We're just getting confirmation. It's on our screen now, 49 seconds. So just to sum up, Christy, it could well be a changeover at the end of the day. Did I hear it right? You're going for Simoni for the stage?
Yeah, I'll go for Simoni for the stage. But I would like to see Rujano have a good attack, and I'd like to see those two really go for it in the last climb.
All right, Christy, well, thanks for your comments. I've made a note. Simoni for you. I'll get a comment from Sean a little bit later. In the meantime, Christy, thanks for your comments. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Well, it's certainly proving to be an interesting attack here by Simoni, and Sean, I get the impression that he's doing most of this himself. I'll ask for your comments in a moment about this, but it does certainly look as though Danilo Di Luca is just content to sit on his wheel for the time being. What do you think? Oh, well, as I speak, Di Luca does in fact come alongside, so maybe that counts as giving him a little bit of a help, but it has been mostly Simoni.
Yes, well, I think we see, first of all, it was Simoni who was doing it, but Di Luca has been, taking the pace making on the front quite a bit there. So he's not doing it all as Simoni here, but Savoldelli also, he hasn't much help here. We see Calcioli from the credit I recall, who was riding a bit on the front. The interesting one, I think, is Savoldelli. We see him there. He was trying to talk to the car, to his manager, probably looking for, what exactly is happening, or maybe he's also looking for the car to come up to get a drink, because when we get over the top of this climb, it's a very fast downhill. There'll be no chance to get the drink before it goes into the last climb to Sestriere. So that's where the disadvantage come with no teammate as well, because if there's a teammate there and he had a half bottle of drink left, well, he could give that to him as they go towards the top of this climb, and he could get something later, or even go back to the car and get it. So a major disadvantage not having a teammate with him on the climb.
I think it's going to be quite a problem to get the team cars up here, because if you look at this road, Sean, as we get higher up, it's not very, very wide at all. In fact, even the motorbike men with the cameras who give us our marvellous pictures, even they're having some trouble getting around these riders. So narrow is this stretch of road, and I've just got my doubts whether we can actually get a team car up there to the lead group.
Well, I think if it gets broken up enough, and as we see there's gaps between, and there's team cars actually coming up now. So when the gaps, get when there's a couple of 100 metres of a gap between the riders, well, then I think the team cars can come through. As we see here, they're coming up at the moment.
Well, we're just hearing that the gap is still 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And here you see how narrow it is. And this is the problem that the team cars are having in getting up to these riders. This is not a wide stretch of road. Meanwhile, Ivanov still is the leader on the road, let's not forget, so far as this stage is concerned. 4 minutes and 50 he still has. He's obviously that much more up the road. That's what, probably about a couple of kilometres higher up the road. He'll be very close, if not on, the unsurfaced part of the road, and you will certainly know when we get there. Look at that beautiful smooth tarmac on these lower stretches. This is quite extraordinary, isn't it, Sean, that we're seeing such lovely smooth tarmac, even with the nice white paint marks on the edge of the road so that you can see where the tarmac finishes and the grass and the rubble begins. And then all of a sudden, with about 8 kilometres to go, poof, that's it. They've run out of money. No more tarmac.
Yes, it is surprising that they're going onto this dirt road, and I suppose the most interesting is when they get to the top and they start the descent. That is, once again a surface road. So they're coming up the last 8 Ks, which is not surface, but I think it's by far the best side to be coming up, because if they came from the other side and had to go down this way, which we will see later, the on-surface, it would be very difficult and very dangerous to do that.
We've just seen a brief shot of Marcio Brugegin, the Fassa Bortolo rider. He's been dropped off the group, so Brugegin is in a little bit of trouble. He is in the top 10 on the overall classification too, just 8 minutes 21 seconds down on Savoldelli. Well, Savoldelli now 53 seconds, so it's almost halfway to that 2 minutes and 9 that Simoni started in arrears this morning. This is getting very, very interesting. Savoldelli's still not panicked though, has he? He's still keeping up that nice steady rhythm. He looks purposeful. He will know what the gap is all the time. These days, as we've talked before many times, most of the riders are wired for sound. I still rather wonder whether that's the right way that bike racing should be going, but nonetheless we're living with it, and he'll be in regular contact with his team car, who will tell him exactly what the gap is. And as you see, no panic. He still seems to have plenty of fight in the legs. He's just controlling the speed at the moment in the knowledge that he's still got well over a minute to spare. But they're not halfway up this climb yet, as we see Ivan Para struggling a little bit. Well, remember, he's the guy who won 2 in a row in the Dolomites, and even the little mountain goat Para is just finding this a little bit too much.
Yes, he is. He had 2 magnificent days where he won back-to-back stages. And he seems to be, suffering once again today, and that's what the 2 big tours are about. You cannot have an off day. You have to be there every day, present all the time. And Savoldelli, he's been there, losing a little bit of time here and there, and once again, he's working quite well at it at the moment. 53 seconds. If he can hold it to around the 50 seconds and 1 minute, I think it's still possible for him to make up a lot of time on the way down.
Sven Montgomery there for the Gerolsteiner team. He was also with this group, and you see he too has blown a gasket and come off the back of it as well. Also there, we just see at the back of the group Wim Van Huffel, who's been climbing quite well actually in the last day or two for the De Wittemon team, but he looks as though he's having a hard time staying with the effort here being made by this man, Gilberto Simoni. Danilo Di Luca, hasn't he been adhesive all the way through this tour? He's stuck like glue to the leaders all the time in the mountains, Sean.
Yes, he certainly has, been very, very impressive in the mountain stages. One day where he just suffered a bit on the final climb and lost that time. But surprising here to see him working with Simoni, because Rujano is there with him, so he's not gaining anything by doing the work on the front here. And I would expect him to sit for the moment and wait and get over this climb. And if he is good on the final climb to Sestriere, have a go then. But he's taking a risk here by working, because with the guys he's with, Simoni, Rujano, very, very good climbers, better climbers than himself. And if he has a little difficult patch, he could again lose some time on the final climb.
Yeah, his strategy is really very important, isn't it? He was for several days in a podium position. Now he finds himself in 4th place, but just 8 seconds off it, and therefore he knows that that podium place is still there for the taking if he can just put a little bit of time somehow into Rujano, as we see Savoldelli, the race leader here, fighting hard to limit his losses. 47 seconds behind, getting bottles here from one of the Discovery Channel team. It's one of the team men anyway, yes. Just by the roadside. He'd gone ahead in the team car and stopped and got the bottles to his man. Good teamwork there by the Discovery Channel team.
Yes, certainly a necessity there, because he would need a bottle at this time, giving such an effort on the climb. He would definitely need a fresh bottle, and as you said, Mike, a very good plan by Discovery Channel.
I said earlier that I couldn't spot Seai Hanchar, but I do believe, Sean, that he is in that lead group after all.
Yes, he
as
is.
it looks like Cauchioli is struggling a little bit here.
Yes, Honchar is certainly there. He's in the background there. I can see him, and you can see with Savoldelli here, there's a teammate of Honchar, which is Belly. He's just sitting there, and he's just the last, well, he's the second last one left in the wheel of Savoldelli. Everybody else seems to be losing contact, but that's a good sign that the riders are dropping off here. It tells you that Savoldelli is going quite well when the riders start to drop off the group that he's riding in here, and there's only just 3 of them left at the moment.
Well, it's hardly a group this, and it's Savoldelli who's doing all the work. He's very exposed here, the pink jersey, very exposed indeed. Okay, he's got fresh bottles from his team assistants, but no help whatsoever in case he should get a puncture or anything. And a lot of the riders have been talking about the possibility of punctures on this unsurfaced stretch of the upper slopes of this new climb, this Colle della Finestre. If it is as rough as some people think it is, then punctures really could be the decisive nature of this stage. It could be a bit of a lottery, Sean.
Yes, it can be a dangerous one, and especially for Savoldelli, who haven't got a teammate anywhere near him. It's very, very dangerous.
Well, good news for Savoldelli, Sean. It's come down again from 47 seconds to 41. So Savoldelli is really putting in a big, big effort here to haul himself back nearer to Simoni.
Yes, well, if the gap starts to come down, and that 41 seconds where we were to 53, it's, you know, it looks very good for Savoldelli if he can just keep on working at it and you know, take it down a little bit from here. The descent is going to be exciting because Savoldelli is going to take big risk here, and this descent is, you know, it's going to be quite dangerous. As we see, they come onto this section now where it's non-surface and a lot of stone around there. We were wondering that exactly what sort of a surface was, but there is quite a lot of grit, a lot of loose stone, so a very, very dangerous, a very risky one for punctures.
Well, it's almost 8 kilometres of this. That tells you how far they've still got to go to the top. The money ran out when they were surfacing the bottom bit, and maybe they'll get round to doing the rest of it, and maybe we can come up here again in the Tour of Italy and it all will be surfaced, and you'll see Savoldelli coming onto the unsurfaced bit any time now. And well, from here on in, you've just got to hold your breath and keep your fingers crossed that nobody gets an inopportune puncture. And that's where the tarmac ends there. Well, this is a very spectacular part of this climb, this Colle delle Finestre. It's part of this huge loop that they're doing from Sestriere around and back to Sestriere for a second time. Never before a part of the Tour of Italy. And I'm not surprised really, but remember that in the days of old, going back to the days when the riders used goggles to protect their eyes completely from the stones being flicked up, and of course from the dust rising up from the unsurfaced roads in those days, this was a regular feature of the major tours in those days, Sean.
Yes, it certainly was. All the climbs were like this, just, you know, loose gravelly surfaces, and it definitely makes it more difficult again, because, you know, when you ride a bike on a good tarmac macadam road and you go onto a dirt surface, as the riders are doing here, how heavy the going gets. So this is going to make it, you know, much more difficult again, and they have almost 8 kilometers of this, so it's you know, not a short stretch by any means.
Danilo Di Luca taking it up at the front, assisting Simoni here. Interesting tactics here from Danilo Di Luca. Di Luca wants a podium place. He's somehow got to find 8 seconds on José Rujano, the man who has clinched the green jersey, the King of the Mountains jersey. Can he drop the little Venezuelan?
No, I can never see that happening, and I'm just wondering, you know, I'm trying to calculate exactly what he's doing here. I reckon that, you know, it's not Rugano that he wants to maybe to come over, but maybe he thinks that Savoldelli is going to lose a lot of time today, and by contributing up here to the pace setting, of course, it, you know, it makes it more difficult for Savoldelli, maybe, so to put him down a long way down the general, and you know, to move up into third position that way. But I see that's the only way he can do it. But at the moment, moment, it's looking, it's not looking that it's going to happen, because Savoldelli is working at it very well, and if he can keep this gap at 40 seconds or at the top of this climb, I think he can gain a lot of it in the descent. And Sestriere, of course, is not as difficult a climb. I think it will suit Savoldelli if he still have a lot left in the legs. I think he can, hang on there and limit his losses once again.
Danilo Di Luca is making an amazing effort on this stretch of the unsurfaced section of this climb, Sean. The average gradient here for the next 8k, well, they've done a little bit of the 8k now, is about just over 9%, which is about 1 in 11. And if you just took a look at him there, as we saw him in close-up, he looked almost as if he was going up on level ground. He really is riding a very, very good Giro d'Italia.
Yes, he is having a very good Giro, and in the mountains he's been really the big surprise, because we look at Di Luca up to this Tour of Italy. He's been looked at as a small stage race rider who can win small stages like the Tour of Pays Basque, classic races, one-day races, of course, but in the big tours we did not expect him to be up in this position. And even if he finishes where he is at the moment, in 4th or 5th position in this Tour of Italy, I think that will be a magnificent performance from him.
Well, we go back to the race leader with Vladimir Belli in his Domina Vacanze colours for company, and the Devotamon Lotto rider, that's Van Huffel, is it?
No, Ardila.
I beg your pardon, it's Ardila, who started the day well out of contention so far as the overall is concerned, I'm afraid, but he's making a good fist of staying with them for the moment. Ardila way down in 35th place this morning, some 55 minutes and 19 seconds on general classification. Meanwhile, don't forget, Ruslan Ivanov is still the stage leader further up the road. We've almost forgotten in our concentration on the battle for the overall here, as Danilo Di Luca persists with this tremendous effort. Let's not forget that Ruslan Ivanov for Domina Vacanze is still up the road, higher up the climb. He is the stage leader.
And so good so far for all of those riders. Nobody of the classement, anybody up in the in the major classement places having a puncture. So they're escaping quite well. Considering the road is, I'm surprised that it's the surface is so many stones there. We were told that it was rolled quite a lot. We can see that where it was rolled, but there's places where there's a lot of small stones sticking up, and that's very, very risky for having a puncture.
It is indeed. I'll tell you who's doing quite well here. The guy on the back for the Phonak team is 168, that's Valjavec, who we've seen once or twice in the mountains. He's never quite pulled it off and been successful, but he's hanging on very well to this lead group. In fact, this lead group, I should say, is the chase group, because of course there's the leader Ivanov up the road, but so far as the general is concerned, this is the lead group. It's Di Luca, Simoni, Rujano and Valjavec. And it's now gone right out to 1:15 between the two groups, as a result mainly of the Di Luca effort. Now that is a big, big change. It went out to 40-odd, 50-odd seconds. It came back to 40-odd, but Di Luca has really forced the pace. There's only the four of them left now. In fact, Valjavec is in danger of losing contact. He's just struggling, and in fact he's gone. Valjavec has gone. There are only the three of them now. Valjavec for Phonak has gone. It's just Di Luca, Simoni and Rujano. But 1:15, Sean, it's getting more and more interesting.
Yes, it's surprising, that has jumped up that much. I know Di Luca, he made an effort there, but Savoldelli seems to be, working quite well all the time. Seemed to be pretty consistent all up this climb. So I'm just wondering, was that 41 seconds, was that a correct time check we got there, because it's jumping out to 1:15 at the moment, so I'm a little bit surprised at that, but Savoldelli, I suppose the good thing is that Valjavec, he's lost also out of this group, so the front group is down to 3 at the moment, because they were quite a number there. At one moment there's about 10 or 12 riders sitting in this on this group of Di Luca, Simoni, Rujano, so a lot of them have fallen off, so that will be also an advantage to Savoldelli later on, because if he can pick up some of those riders later in the final climb, they might be able to do some bit of riding on the front and give him some bit of a hand in this pace setting.
Remarkable to see Di Luca doing so well. It seems a long time ago now, really, since we were talking about him winning the Pays Basque, and then those two within a few days, the Amstel Gold and the Flèche Wallonne. Great victories, and who would have thought that he would ride such a good Tour of Italy. At the end of the day, if he doesn't make it onto the podium, you've got to say that he has become a Grand Tour rider.
Yes, and I think it's promising for the years to come. The following years for a Giro and other big tours, for example. I think he's improved a lot this year, so he will look at himself now and say, well, I can get on a podium and maybe win a big tour. So he's going to prepare his seas maybe a bit differently than he has been over the past couple of years.
Going back to what Christy said, she had Simoni down for the stage victory. As we home in on Valjevec, who sadly has just been dropped by the other three, Simoni, Di Luca and Rujano. Christy went for Simoni. Sean, who's your pick?
As we see Garate
That's
there
Garate.
also.
He's also suffering.
Yes.
Who's your pick for the stage?
Well, I think Rujano is going to be very dangerous on this final climb, and as he's a very good climber, I think he's not doing a lot of work here the past while. He seems to be leaving it to Simoni and Di Luca, so I would be very afraid of him on the final climb.
Well, the gap's gone up to 1 minute 22. It's looking very dangerous. Just remember that the benchmark was the 2 minutes 9 seconds that separated Savoldelli in first place and Simoni in second place at the start of the day. You wanted excitement on this penultimate stage of the Giro d'Italia. You're certainly getting it. And there you saw the dust being thrown up by the cars, and of course that's not good for the riders, is it, Sean? All that dust being thrown up, you're breathing hard, you're bound to breathe some of it in. It can't be doing you any good.
No, it's not good, but it's only just when the cars are going by, so it's not a major problem for the riders. Of course, when they do go by, as we just see the flash there, you feel it when you're breathing so heavily. But the most difficult thing, I think, on the climbs is when you have the motorbikes around you, the camera, TV cameras and the photographers on the big climbs, when it's really, really warm and the fumes coming off them. That is the most difficult, and it really, burns your throat, and when you're breathing when you're going at this pace.
Paolo Cacchiola, Yvonne Parra, some good names here struggling on this huge climb up to the Colle della Finestre. When they get to the top, by the way, it's 2,178 metres above sea level, which is what, about 6,006. It's the thick end of 7,000 feet above sea level. It's a very, very high climb, and the views for those people who've come up here to watch the tour and are spectating on the sides of the road, the views up here in this particular corner of the Alps, absolutely spectacular.
They certainly are, and the interesting one for now to see Savoldelli, if he can pick up some of the riders that have been lost out of this leading group of Di Luca, Simoni and Rujano. If he can pick up Honsha, for example, that would be very important for Savoldelli, because we see there Savoldelli with Belli, he's sitting there, and Belli cannot do any of the work because he's got Honsha up the road. But if he can come back on Honsha, I think Belli might start working, and that would be a great advantage to Savoldelli.
I think, Sean, Italian television was just giving us a kind of a retro look at the way tours were many, many years ago there, when they briefly went back to black and white. It was spoilt by having a very modern team car there with zillions of bikes on the top, but that apart, suddenly it was like watching a Tour of Italy of the pre-war. 1 minute 42. This gap is going up and up between Savoldelli and the leading trio, apart from Ivanov, who of course is the stage leader, the leading trio of Simoni, Di Luca, Rujano. Sure, we're getting very close to that 2 minutes and 9.
Yes, it's growing now to a point where it's getting very, very dangerous for Savoldelli, and he's going to have to do something magnificently on the descent of this one, and then on the final climb to Sestriere, he's going to really have to pull everything out of the bag and put in a brilliant ride, because 1:42, it's danger time. The alarm bells are starting to ring.
I tell you what, Gilberto Simoni must be ever so grateful to Danilo Di Luca that Di Luca is giving him so much assistance. Obviously Di Luca's working, he's got a lot to play for, but wow, this is a godsend for Gilberto Simoni.
Yes, it is, certainly is. It's he's a great aid up there for Simoni. He's doing a lot of the work, as we see, and it's causing there's a lot of the time that they're pulling out here of Savoldelli. That's because of Di Luca, that he's contributing so much to the pace setting up front with Simoni.
Vladimir Belli just hanging on to his shirt tails, just about. But Simoni has been, Savoldelli has been doing all the work here, chasing all on his own. He's had no support from anybody. He's got to do it on his own here. Belli doesn't seem to be able to help him. Belli, I think, is just thankful to have a wheel to sit on.
Well, I don't think Belli can work because he's
got a man up the road anyway, hasn't he?
That is his problem.
Leading the stage.
Yes, and as I was saying there just a moment ago, if they could, get back to Honcha, well, that would be very important, because then Belli would start to, do some riding on the front. As we see, one of the earlier men, Nearman, wasn't it? He's been passed by that three-man group, Simoni, Di Luca, Rujano, and he's been passed by a lot of the riders at the moment.
Well, Nearman's done his job for the day. He's been out in front for quite a long time, and I imagine he will finish some considerable distance behind the stage winners at the end of the day. There he is in the Rabobank colours. So there's just one more man up the road now, and that is Ruslan Ivanov, or Domina Vacancy, who went away very early on the stage together with Mark Renshaw, Olympic gold medalist in Athens last year, and Nearman, and Ivanov, the Moldovan rider, on his own up the road. And once again, a little bit of retro for you. Days of Coppi and Bartali, eh? Golden days.
Yes, and we see a little bit of an air there for a moment, a little bit of push on the back.
Yes, well, the riders don't like that. In fact, lower down the slopes, we actually saw one or two of the riders pushing spectators away. The commissaires have been fairly strict. They have penalised riders. In fact, Di Luca got a 10-second penalty the other day, 10-second time penalty the other day. Charlie Bergelius, too, one of the two Brits in the race, was also penalised twice for getting pushes, one from a car, would you believe, and one from a rider. And there is our race leader, Ivanov, higher up the climb. And as it happens, we've got him wired for sound today. He's coming back quite quickly now, Ivanov. And as it happens, he's one of the riders we've got wired up to test, to show you the heartbeat. And he's currently going at 159 to the minute, which is 83%. But his day is done, and he's coming back very, very quickly now to this trio of Simoni, Di Luca and Rujano.
Yes, he certainly is. And just look at that road there. It's a very, very bad surface, and an amazing amount of loose gravel, loose stones around, and so far, fingers crossed, everybody's getting through. All the main men, we haven't had a puncture, since we've come onto this surface.
Don't say that, Sean. 1 minute 53, Sean. 1 minute 53 between Simoni, Di Luca, Rujano and the Savoldelli Belli group. 1 minute 53, and just remember that benchmark time that Simoni began behind Savoldelli this morning, 2 minutes and 9. This is really, really tight now. Well, this is the joy in many ways for those of us who watch this Tour of Italy, in having the mountains coming at the back end of the race. OK, there's the processional run into Milan tomorrow, as we see the three riders, Simoni, Di Luca, Rujano, now leading the stage. They've gone past Ivanov, the long-time leader, and Ivanov, I fear his day is done. Having the mountains at the back end of this race always means that the drama lasts right through, virtually to the death, Sean.
Yes, it certainly does. And but in the Tour of France, of course, we have mountains pretty close to the end as well. But sometimes, it's a bit more clear cut before we go to the final climbs, and it has been a number of times with the victory of Lance. It seems to be, the last days, the mountains, he's so dominant. We say to ourselves, well, there's no way he's going to be beaten here. Where in this Giro, certainly in other past ones, very exciting. But this year, really exciting here at the moment. And now the question is, can Savoldelli, limit the losses as he's growing all the time, and on the descent, what can he do on the final climb to Sestriere? Can he really do something exceptional to hold on to his pink jersey?
Well, the leaders are now within 3 kilometres of the top of this huge climb on this unsurfaced section as we go back to the Savoldelli group. Just a reminder, that's Ardila for Davitamon Lotto, who is with the race leader, and Vladimir Belli, of course. And of course, Belli is now free to perhaps take a more active role now that his teammate, who was up the road, has come back.
Yes, well, I don't think that was the reason for him sitting there. As Honchar, he is the main problem because he's in between. He was with this group of Simoni, Di Luca, Rujano, and he got dropped a number of kilometres back down, but he's still ahead of Savoldelli. And I think if Savoldelli can catch up with him, well, then Belli, we could see him, doing some riding, because they are going to ride to conserve the place of Honchar, which is 6th at the moment. He's at 4:22 in the general classement. So that is, where Belli is. He cannot just do anything at the moment. He just has to stay in the wheel of Savoldelli.
Danilo Di Luca, for me, one of the two revelations of this race, the other being, without a doubt, José Rujano. And Di Luca tackling these climbs as if he was born to climb them, Sean.
Yes, well, I suppose it looks a bit more like the classics here. The Tour of Flandre, there's a lot of very bad surfaces, cobbles, and some of the other events that he ride very well in. He has been doing very well in, so he's a little bit on this climb. He's probably a bit more on his home ground.
Well, I've just heard that the time gap is now 2 minutes between Messrs Simoni, Di Luca and Rujano, and Savoldelli, Belli and Ardila. 2 minutes now. The gap this morning, 2:09. Savoldelli in danger of losing the pink jersey. Well, what marvellously exciting drama we're getting here, Sean, on this penultimate day of this year's Giro d'Italia, as we get some glimpse of the valley down below. Beyond them, look at the hairpins that they've come up lower down, and there's Rujano, this little Venezuelan who has had a marvellous Tour of Italy. The riders now well over 6,500 feet above sea level. This is a very, very high climb. Remember that it's a mountaintop finish. They have a descent after this, and then the second climb of the day up to Sestriere, when they complete this massive 90-kilometre loop. Just look at the gradient here, Sean. You get some idea of just how steep this is. This is 1 in 8, 1 in 9 averaging over the final part of this climb. This is tough climbing. You can't get much harder than this. It's not just the steepness of the climb, the fact that there's no tarmac, it's just a rough surface. This is one of the hardest climbs I've seen for some considerable time.
Yes, it definitely is a very difficult climb, and as you said, Mike, not the percentage, but riding on that soft surface, the tyres, the narrow tyres, they really sink in, and we can see some of the tracks there as the riders go through, so it makes it very, very difficult to climb on this sort of surface.
Probably just as well it's a nice dry sunny day. Imagine what it would have been like if they'd had a heavy rainstorm, which at this height, even at this time of the year, might have fallen as snow. Then we might have seen a very different situation.
Well, definitely it would be terrible if they had rain and the surface was wet here, and it would be much more difficult again, because when it gets wet it would be much more sticky, and you dig into it more as well. The tyres would sink in a lot more when it is wet, so thank God that the weather is good and they have a dry surface here.
Well, there you see the top, and look at all the people up there waiting for the race to come. My goodness me, haven't they got some view, Sean?
Are they people or are they trees?
No, there's no trees up there. As we come up to... You're winding me up again, Sean Kelly. Coming up to 5 hours of racing, and those people, I imagine, have been up there for some considerable time to get their spot, as is often the case in these Grand Tours. You need to get there well in advance. And Savoldelli finally getting a little bit of support here from Ardila. As we go retro once again, imagine this, back in the 1930s. Well, there weren't cars like that, of course, but most of the top climbs were all like this back in those days. In fact, for some years after the war as well, before the spread of tarmac made things a little easier. And I think our Italian television director is quite loving just going back to black and white for a little while. And, well, there you go, Sean.
The spectators.
As if you ever doubted it.
As we see Ardilia there, he's taking up the pace on the front. He's been sitting there in the wheel all the time of Savoldelli, and you know, he's riding quite well here. We see Savoldelli just following his wheel, so it will give him a little bit of recovery here as he takes the pace setting on the front again. We also see the Discovery Channel team car coming up there and giving Savoldelli a drink, which is very important. And sometimes, you know, that doesn't work, because if there's riders in between here at, you know, 30-40 metres behind Savoldelli, a number of riders, the team car might not be allowed up by the commissaire. But the gap is, you know, there's quite a big gap between Savoldelli and the next rider back, so the team car can come up, and very important that he can get plenty of drink here.
Sean, the gap is 2 minutes 12, which means that on the road, Gilberto Simoni, for the moment, is the leader of this Tour of Italy. He's pulled back the 2 minutes 9 that he started with this morning. Drama indeed on this penultimate day of the Tour of Italy.
It certainly is, and you know, the down to the final climb now. Interesting to see what these riders can have left. You know, Di Luca up front, he's doing an enormous amount of muck. Will he, you know, hold on there, and will he be able to keep on riding with Simoni? But you know, Simoni is definitely going to go for it on the final climb. Savoldelli just has to, you know, dig in and try and pull back some time, but it's going to be majorly difficult. And if he does pull back time and hold on to the jersey, it will be you know, an unbelievable ride from Savoldelli.
Well, I wonder if Danilo Di Luca here fancies making the gap more than 3 minutes and 8 seconds, Sean, because that's what he was behind Savoldelli this morning. They've already got 2 minutes and more. Di Luca is still in with a shout, you have to say, of closing that gap too.
Yes, as we see a Discovery supporter here. Is he watching a TV screen? He seems to be looking very disappointed at the moment. But Di Luca, yes, I think you know, that was part of his plan. If he was going well, to go for it and see could he take enough time out of Savoldelli to move up in the podium, because against Rujano I don't see him doing anything on the final climb, and especially the effort he's putting in, taking into consideration Rujano is doing nothing here. He's just sitting on Di Luca Simoni all the time, so it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything against Rujano, unless that Di Luca is on just an unbelievable day, the day of his life. I say he needs to be able to drop any of those two other breakaway companions on the final climb.
Well, as you say, the final climb, all will be revealed when we get to that particular point. Who knows? But my own feeling is that Rujano, because he sat on the wheels most of this climb, is saving himself for that final climb. And I'm with you. I rather suspect that he is the one who is most likely to get the stage victory. But my goodness me, Di Luca is making a very determined effort to try to ensure that all three of these riders overtake Savoldelli in the general classification come the end of today. Well, these people here on the top of this brand new climb to the Tour of Italy are seeing, in cycling terms anyway, a little bit of history here, because this is a remarkable stage we're seeing. Here are the riders lying second, third and fourth in the general classification as of this morning, attacking the pink jersey, 1, 2, 3 of them, going for glory, putting Savoldelli deep in trouble. And drama indeed here. Will there be a fight back by Savoldelli on the surfaced descent and of course the final climb up to Sestriere, or are these three going to all usurp him? He could finish as low as fourth on general classification at the end of the day, Savoldelli, after being in pink for a week.
Yes, it's possible, and you know, if these three up front keep on pulling away from as they have been doing on this climb, well then it's looking that it, you know, it could happen. But you know, it's man against man. 2:08 at the moment is coming over our radio, so down from 2:12, and you know, we see that Savoldelli has got Ardia, who is doing some of the pulling on the front, so that has helped to narrow the gap. Savoldelli doing all the work on this climb, really. There's nobody giving him any hand, and he's been joined up, we see a bit earlier on there, by Atenza, so if he can do a little bit, maybe this gap can come down a bit before we get to the top. But definitely, you know, it's going to be a hard one for Savoldelli to hold on to his jersey.
Well, at 2 minutes 8, it means that he is in terms of the strict mathematical situation, he's now back in pink again by 1 second. Remember, the gap was 2.9 at the start of the day. So he has pulled back sufficient for the moment, but it's all very much in the melting pot, Sean.
Yes, it certainly is. But with Savoldelli, of course, you know, whatever the Ardilia can support, he can give him maybe Atienza, as I said, because they need to do it before we get to the top of this climb, because Savoldelli is going to go down this descent at an unbelievable rate. He's going to take, you know, major risks, and those riders are not going to be able to stay with him. That's a certainty. So he's going to be on the final climb to Sestriere. Savoldelli is going to want to again on his own, unless he can pick up some riders which are still in between this 3 leaders and himself.
Well, the 3 leaders are just coming up to the top of the climb now. In fact, you just had a shot a moment or two ago of the King of the Mountains banner. This is a special category climb. The points to be earned here are more than for your average first category climb, if there is such a thing, as we see them go under the banner with Di Luca and then Simoni and then Rujano. Rujano getting more points, by the way. He can't be caught in the King of the Mountains classification. And as they come round that final corner, bingo, straight back onto glorious tarmac. Behind them, though, the chasers are still on this rough, unsurfaced stretch of road. Savoldelli, Belli and Ardila. The crucial one of the 3, of course, Savoldelli in the pink jersey, is in the middle of the group at the moment. Ardila just giving him a little bit of help.
As they catch up with Neerman. And the pace looks to be quite good there with Savoldelli. Ardila, of course, is who is making the pace, and it looks to be, you know, going quite well for him at the moment. So maybe when we get to the top, the gap will come down a little bit more. As we said, it was after dropping by 3 or 4 seconds there. So hopefully he can pull back a number of seconds before he gets to the top. We just see Savoldelli has a little bit of a problem staying in the wheel of Ardila for the moment.
Well, Ardila looks as though he's full of beans, quite frankly, and I should imagine that Savoldelli will be thankful for that. It will help him to keep the gap down. Remember that he's looking to be at the top within 2 minutes and 9 seconds to still be in the pink jersey position. Do you ever ride a road like this, Sean?
Yes, actually we did. In the Nissan Classic one year, we had it down in the south of Ireland. It was an unsurfaced road. It's not open to traffic, the gap of Dunlow, and we had to climb up a number of kilometres and down the other side, which was pretty scary because we were in the dirt road on the way down for the first 2 or 3 Ks. So it's not the first time that a race has been over an unsurfaced road.
But I think it might be the first time for some years at 7,000 feet above sea level.
It certainly is.
Well, 2 minutes and 4:56, and there you see the time on your bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Enormous crowds here to watch this Giro d'Italia come over the top, and there he goes over the line. 2 minutes 19 I made it. I might be just a second out, but 2:19 at the top means that he is 10 seconds outside what he needed to be to maintain his hold on the pink jersey. And suddenly, back on this lovely smooth tarmac, they'll all breathe a huge sigh of relief. But as we head towards a short break, excitement indeed on this penultimate day of the Giro d'Italia, as Messrs Di Luca, Simoni and Rujano aim to unseat Savoldelli.
With City Cycling Shoes.
Why aren't there 3D photos of me before I was born? 'Cause boy am I handsome. Why can't technology be as simple as the box it comes in?
We think technology should simplify life, not complicate it.
Turn off the amber light function on your Philips flat TV and it's like going back in time. The only flat TV with amber light from Philips. You'll never go back to ordinary TV.
Cyprus. Welcome to the island for all seasons.
Welcome back to the Giro d'Italia here on Eurosport as you join us at the most exciting stage of this year's race. This is the penultimate day. The race finishes in Milan tomorrow, but who will have the glory of winning this 88th edition of the race? The pink jersey, the race leader, Savoldelli, going over the top of the big climb of the Finestre. 2 minutes and 19 seconds in arrears on Di Luca, Simoni and Rujano, who started the day second, third and fourth, not necessarily in that order, but anyway, second, third and fourth on the general classification behind the pink jersey. As we just have a little look once again at the site, this is a little recording we made for you at the site of Savoldelli and his little group going up towards the finish. Now, it looks as though Vladimir Belli has gone. He's just got Ardila for company at the moment. Ardila, of course, running for Davitamon Lotto, Maurizio D'Ardila, who did give him a little bit of help on the climb. But they're now, as you see, on the descent down to the town of Pureras, and that in turn leads to the final climb up to Sestriere, where they were earlier before they went on this huge loop. Sorry, you say you've got her? Well, okay, all right, we'll take her again. Okay. Well, there's the gap, 2 minutes 16, and it really is in the melting pot now with this descent and the final climb to go. I understand we've got Christy Anderson back on the telephone. Christy, this is the most dramatic penultimate day we've had in the Tour of Italy for some years. 2 minutes 19 seconds between Savoldelli and the three leaders who are just behind him on general classification. And of course the benchmark was the 2 minutes 9 that was between Savoldelli and Simoni at the start of play this morning. You couldn't have a more exciting finish to the race than this, could you, Christy?
No, it's absolutely nail-biting. I'm sitting here watching it also, and I just cannot get over the fact that we may be looking at the top three places on the podium decided in the last mountain stage of this tour, which is just fantastic racing really all around.
Well, the question is, what can Savoldelli do now on the descent and the final climb up to Sestriere to narrow this gap down? Because it looks to me, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, that Messrs Simoni, Rujano and Di Luca have very much got the bit between their teeth.
Absolutely. If you notice, Rujano's not done much of the pulling on the front. He's basically, I think, waiting for his moment, and it's going to have to be at probably the steepest point in this final climb when he's going to have to attack. Otherwise, he'll be relegated to second position, possibly on the podium. But Di Luca has put himself back on the map, back in contention for a podium finish, and he'll be actually fighting, I think, with Rujano for second place overall. But Savoldelli was caught out, no teammates, no help, no support. I think that's where he's come unstuck, and I really don't think he can do much on this descent because, as you notice, they're pedaling on the descent. So it's not like just a nail-biting sort of descent where your technical skills can help you that much. You know, they're no longer on the dirt. Now they're on paved surfaces. So I don't think Savoldelli, unless it was raining or something really extraordinary, is going to make up enough time on the descent to save himself.
Well, 20 kilometres to go, and your pick at the moment for the stage is Gilberto Simoni. Are you still sticking with that, Christy?
Yep. Look, in my heart, I'd like to see Rujano go and like to see him really just blitz the whole thing and basically put Celitalia on the map. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Simoni is a specialist. He knows how to win the Giro. He's done it 2 times before. He's waited. He's timed it perfectly. I think Di Luca has been working with him a little bit, and I think that they together will come in, but he will attack and he will distance himself.
Well, we shall have to wait and see. My own feeling is that Rujano may well get the stage, but who will end up in the pink jersey, I think that is very much in the melting pot. The time gap, it's hovering around about that 2 minutes 9 in which they started this morning. We're currently hearing it's back down to 2:05, so maybe Savoldelli is able to use his descending skills to pull a little bit back on these three.
Yeah, a little bit, sure, but there's a big climb to come, and at the base of the last climb, you would never see, for instance, Armstrong this far off the back. He could never make up that kind of time. Savoldelli, when he's climbing, you see his style. He's looking like he's really putting a lot of work into it, unlike the style of Gilberto Simoni, who is looking very fluid, very supple, as is Di Luca and Rujano. So I don't really see that Savoldelli could possibly save himself at this point, even for a podium finish.
Whoa, even for a podium finish. So you're having Danilo Di Luca pulling back. What was it he started this morning? 3 minutes and 8 seconds on Savoldelli. You think that Di Luca can finish more than 3 minutes and 8 seconds ahead of Savoldelli today?
I think he can if Simoni does. That would be my bet. I think he'll stay with Simoni. He's been doing it in all the mountain stages. He's been able to finish with Simoni on the same exact time. And if he can do that today, then if Simoni can pull 3 minutes out of Savoldelli, which is highly possible on this last climb, yeah, I think he can end up on the podium and basically knock Savoldelli off.
Okay, we shall see. Thanks for your comments, Christy, and enjoy the rest of the day. And of course, we shall be talking to you again tomorrow on the final stage into Milan. Bye for now.
Okay, Mike.
Well, we're getting time checks that say just it's coming down fractionally. It did hit a maximum of 2 minutes 19, Sean. That was the maximum, but the latest we've had, it's down to 2 minutes 3. So Savoldelli undoubtedly is able to just squeeze the odd second out here, the odd second out there. He needs everyone.
Yes, he is. He's working at it well, and actually over the top, when you say 2:19 over radio, they said 2:23 actually. So there was, maybe a little bit more in it there. And as you said, 2:03 at the moment. And I don't agree with Christy that he's going to lose his place in the top 3, because I reckon that Di Luca will pay for his efforts up front with Simoni. When they get to Sestriere, he's going to start struggling, and I think he will start coming backwards for Di Luca. I'd be major surprised if he can keep on doing what he's doing. The advantage for Savoldelli here is that he has some riders with him, as we see Rujano there have a little bit of a problem in the corner, panicking a bit. But Savoldelli have Ardillo, of course, which we see for quite a bit, but they've also caught up with Van Huffel, as we see. Is this where Ardillo went a bit straight on? He left it run a bit wide for a moment and knocked his speed off himself before taking the corner once again. But they've caught up with Van Huffel, as I said, from the Davitamon Lotto, and Honchar also. So very valuable men for Savoldelli here. When they come to the final climb, they will start making the pace with Savoldelli. So maybe he can pull something really good out of the bag and do a magnificent ride up this final climb to Sestriere. So it's all to play for. But as Christy said, the podium place, I don't think he will lose that much.
Well, the other question about Honchar and Huffel, who've been caught by Savoldelli, is when they get to the final climb, how much do you think they will have left in their legs to help Savoldelli, if they choose to help him at all? Yes,
that is the question. And the riders up front as well, Simoni and Di Luca, as I said, Rujano, everybody's doing a very strong ride here earlier on this other climb, the earlier climb. So how much will everybody have left? The ones up front, the ones chasing Savoldelli, that is the big question for the moment.
Well, for me, it's got to be Rujano, because he's been sitting in the wheels for the most part, and he's recovered from that little overcooking of the corner, about a kilometre back now, back with the trio. There's still all together 3, but I still think that Rujano's got a bit left in the tank.
I'm not that sure if as much as I had hoped. When I put my head on the block and I said he was going to win the stage, I think I said Rujano, because I was onto the bookies there and I put 100, and I think if I could go back and take some of that back, I would do it now, because I see him on the last climb. He was starting to suffer a little bit. He wasn't pedaling as the flow wasn't as good as it was here in that climb. He was pedaling a little bit square, as they say, so I'm a little bit concerned that he's starting to suffer.
Well, just taking a bottle from the car, the Cell Italia Columbia team car. 15 kilometres to go to the finish, and of course most of it is uphill. And it's a very, very stiff climb indeed. I wonder whether Danilo Di Luca is just feeling things. Is that a little bit of cramp, maybe? Remember, he put in a massive effort on the Finestre climb to open up what became a 2-minute-plus gap over the leading trio and the pink jersey Savoldelli. What do you think the problem was there, Sean?
Yes, it looks like he had cramp, and hopefully it is. Because I think it's a little bit unfair at the moment up front. There's 3 riders there, well, certainly 2 very strong ones, and it was 2 against 1 for Savoldelli all the way up the last climb, and it looks very much like he has a cramp here, so it's going to play into the hands of Savoldelli at the moment.
Well, I think he's pretty well given up the effort.
Yes,
as a result of this.
Well, he's not able to probably put the pressure on as he would like. When when you have a cramp, you have to ease off for quite a bit. Use a lower gear, a lighter gear, and pedal it along, and hopefully it will pass. But he has slowed down a lot and left Simoni and Rujano go on ahead, because he's just not able to keep piling on the pressure as he has been doing for quite a long time.
Well, it could well be that we are seeing the end to Danilo Di Luca's hopes of a podium place at the finish of this Tour of Italy. Now, this was the day when he had to make the big effort, and this is the point of the day when he had to make the big effort. So, has his chance of a podium place finally gone, do you think?
Well, I think yes, definitely now. And the effort, as I said when Christy spoke, she said that it looked like that it was the top three for the podium, but the effort Di Luca was making on that other climb, it was going to pay its price, and it paid earlier than I expected, because we're not on the final climb as yet, and he's had problems already, so he's definitely going to lose a lot of time here.
Yes, it's unusual to see a rider going down with cramp on the descent, isn't it? Oops, and my goodness me, that motorbike with the television nearly came adrift there as one of the team cars went past. We nearly had a nasty accident there. These guys do a fantastic job bringing us the pictures from... we don't just get the helicopter shots like the shot we're seeing now. 1 minute 53, so it is still coming down. But of course, the guys on the back of the motorbike, they live a very precarious life. Every day they go out on the motorbikes, uphill, down dale, up mountains, down mountains, with these big cameras on their shoulders. They've got to twist and turn around on the back. It's difficult for the rider of the motorbike who's steering the darn thing, to keep it straight. They do a fantastic job.
They certainly do, and their insurance company, I wonder, do they know exactly what the dangers, the risks they take?
We'll take a short break.
Football's angels on a mission, taking the beautiful game to new heights. Fast, physical, full of skill. Germany has led the way. The rest are tired of having their wings clipped. They get their chance of redemption just once every 4 years. Now is the time. The UEFA Women's Euro 2005 from June 5th, live and kicking on Eurosport.
The emotion of the athletes, the passion of the fans, the thrill of the competition. From February the 10th to the 26th, 2006, Italy will host the 20th Olympic Winter Games. Get ready for Torino 2006. To find out more and to purchase your tickets, contact your National Olympic Committee or visit the website torino2006.org.
Sensation 109, feeling like a queen for a day.
Sensation 315, knowing that every day is different.
Sensation 602, having everything within my reach. Estoril, one place, 1,000 sensations, in Portugal.
Welcome back to our coverage of this penultimate stage of this year's Tour of Italy. What a fantastic day it has been out on the road to the finish today up at Sestriere. And at the moment we've got Simoni and Rujano out in the lead, and they are still 1 minute and 53 seconds ahead of the pink jersey. The pink jersey, Savoldelli, is hanging on very, very gamely to his jersey. As we look at Danilo Di Luca, who was with the leading twosome, of course, a little earlier, but suffered quite a bad attack of cramp just a few kilometres higher up the climb, or the descent, I should say. On his descent now towards the bottom of the valley before the final climb. But he looks as though he's come come through that, Sean, and he looks to me as though he started to race again. I hear the gap up the road to Simoni and Rujano is only about 12 seconds, so he could yet get back into contention and maybe yet help them a little bit more up the final climb.
Yes, he certainly could. You know, when the cramp just passes it, you know, stay off maybe for 10-20 seconds, and if you ease off for a while, pedal a smaller gear, as I said, it can pass, and sometimes you just get, you know, a dart of cramp like that, and it can go away very quickly as you get it, I suppose, and that seems to be the case for Di Luca at the moment.
Well, it would certainly help the course of these two guys, wouldn't it? Simoni and Rujano currently lying in second and third place on the overall classification. At one time, they had actually opened up a sufficient gap to be ahead of Savoldelli, or at least Simoni was ahead on the general classification on the road, so to speak. But the gap has closed to 1 minute and 53 seconds, and so that means that Savoldelli, for the moment, is still in pink as we continue to alter our calculations. He's got some company now, Savoldelli. He's got Ardili, he's got Van Huffel, he's got Conchar to assist him in the chase up to the leading two, or is it the leading three, as Danilo Di Luca tries very hard to get back to Simoni and Rujano. We're almost down in the valley now, down to the town of Porreras, and then of course there's the final push up to Sestriere for the second time, and that is where once again we're going to see, I'm sure, another explosion of drama.
Yes, and the interesting one for Savoldelli also, as you said, he picked up a number of riders there, the two from Davitam and Lota, but they also picked up Baljavec and Garate. So they have 6 riders in that group of Savoldelli at the moment, and the Davitam and Lota riders seem to be riding very, very strongly. So that's, you know, going to be very important for Savoldelli, as we see 10 kilometres for our leaders at the moment.
And I've just heard that the gap has come down a bit more, Sean, so it's 1 minute 40 now. So obviously Savoldelli is benefiting greatly from the work that all the other guys in that chase group are doing. They've just lost a bottle there. The liquid gas team attempted to hand up a bottle to Danilo Di Luca, and you saw it going down in the road, so they'll have to have take 2 on that one.
And maybe it was a bottle of champagne, the podium place that Christie was talking about.
I doubt that very much. I tell you what, it might have had some salt in it. Sometimes the riders will take a salt tablet which can ease the cramp and get that down them. That can do something to ease cramps in the legs, can't it?
Yes, certainly does. And of course, if Di Luca is coming back into the to catch Simoni and Rujano, well then, you know, this will be the time to give him a drink, because when he goes ahead of the commissar, who's immediately behind Simoni, you know, he'll not be allowed to take it. He'll have to come back behind that car again, so it's a good moment to give him a fresh drink.
Well, this chase group is doing a very, very good bit of work here, and Savoldelli will be thankful for the company as they attempt to reduce the gap to manageable proportions. 10 kilometres to go for the chase group, and that's where the clock stops at 1 minute 37. So it continues to come down. In fact, Race Radio are saying 1:36. Well, we'll not argue about a second for the time being, but back up to the 2 leaders on the road, Simoni and Rujano, and they've now got to mentally prepare themselves, Sean, for the final push, because one feels that these next 10 kilometres, which is what, only just a little bit over 6 miles, is where this year's Giro d'Italia surely is going to be won and lost.
It certainly is, and it's going to be a question, you know, how strong they are up front, how much Simoni still have got, because he's, you know, doing a lot of the riding up front, but Savoldelli also. Savoldelli having the advantage at the moment that he has these riders with him who are prepared to do the work on the front, and it's a very important time to have somebody like that before you go into the final climb, just to give you a little bit of a recovery. And Savoldelli, if he can, you know, put himself together and put in a very good ride on the final climb, he could just about hold on.
He could too. It's going to be very, very close, as we just saw Danilo Di Luca fighting hard to try to get up to the leading duo. This last climb up to Sestriere, which, remember, they've already done once today when they were much earlier on in the race before this huge 90-kilometre loop. It's not the severest of climbs, but remember that the guys hit this climb having already done 170-odd kilometres, nearly 180 kilometres of hard racing. And, of course, even a moderate climb can seem like the worst one in the world world when your legs are getting tired. You've been on the road for almost 3 weeks now since this race began. Well, it is 3 weeks ago today. The average gradient up to Sestriere is a fairly modest 5.1%, although it does have sections of 6%, even 7%, and very briefly in the midsection it just touches 8%, which is about 1 in 12. But it's not the severest of ascents, and the gradient is fairly consistent. It just eases off in the last kilometre heading towards the finish line, but by then I should think all will be pretty well decided. 1:34 is the gap, so it continues to come down. Savoldelli, is he breathing a sigh of relief at the moment, Sean, or is the pressure still on?
Well, depending on how the body is feeling, how the legs are, if he's still feeling, he has a bit left in the legs, he's feeling okay. A very good moment for him with the riders he has. They are prepared to do the work going into the final climb, and as you said, Mike, the final climb to Sestriere, not very steep, the gradient not as much as the last one they have been over, so good for Savoldelli because it's a bigger gear job and he can use a bigger gear. He likes pounding a big gear up the climbs. The last climb, of course, with that 8 kilometers on the dirt track on sandy roads, that would be very heavy going for Savoldelli because he's a much bigger rider than Simoni, not a good climber, so that's another advantage for Savoldelli here, and it's definitely going to be man against man here, because I feel that Simoni really will turn it on when he gets on the climb, and I think everybody in the top 4 or 5 will be almost alone immediately on the climb.
It'll be interesting to see just how much help he gets on this climb, because I rather feel that some of those guys who are there with him at the moment might just find that this last climb is a little bit too much for them and they may not be able to contribute. 1:27. Well, this is a very, very big change of fortunes when you consider that at the top of Finestre it was actually as high as 2 minutes and 23. It's been a very, very good descent down the valley and to the start of the final climb for Savoldelli. He has used his descending skills to full effect to close the gap. He has also had the support of the riders who are with him, Ardila, Garate, Valjavec, Van Huffel and Honchar, and so he may well just be able to do enough to hang on to his pink jersey and perhaps tomorrow be crowned King of the Giro d'Italia for a second time. But that man there wants it for a third time, and he looks still full of grit and determination, Sean.
Yes, he certainly does, and he's got to give it all now, because this is the moment where he has to try and pull back the time again on Savoldelli, and an interesting one to see when Savoldelli hits the climb, how well he's feeling and how much the other riders can do for him on the bottom slopes. That's going to be very important as well. If he have 1 or 2 of those riders who keep on riding on the front with him, with Savoldelli, well, that's going to be of major importance if they can get him up the first 2 or 3 kilometers of the climb.
Well, now, am I right in saying that this is the first time, or that was the first time, that we've seen Rujano actually at the front as we go back to Di Luca?
Yes, it's been a rare. It's been rare to see Rujano. We haven't seen him at all really going on the front, but he's starting to start now and take over the pace setting with Simoni, and it will be interesting to see how strong he is, and will the two of them stay together. It will be also important, because if they can share the pace up front here between the two, that can mean a lot over the next couple of kilometres. Simoni seems to be gritting his teeth a bit there. Starting to sting in the legs, but as you said, Mike, after this distance and 3 weeks racing, everybody is going to be on the rivet here, as they say in cycling.
Well, this is the time when you expect everybody to be on the rivet. The last mountain stage of the Tour. It's the usually processional run into Milan tomorrow, where the race has finished for quite a great number of years, although Milan has by no means always been the scene of the finish of the Tour of Italy. Of course, it's finished in many places up and down Italy over the years, but Milan seems to have become its traditional home this last thick end of 20 years, I think now.
1:25, so another 2 seconds after coming down for this group of Savoldelli.
Oh, it's hurting Di Luca. It's hurting Danilo Di Luca. He's about 20 seconds adrift of the leading duo. Well, for my money, Simoni still looks very determined, but he's going to have to do it all over again. He did a marvellous ascent of the Finestre, and that's where he opened the gap and theoretically, mathematically, for a moment, took that pink jersey off the shoulders of Savoldelli. But what a marvellous comeback Savoldelli made of the descent and the early part of the climb. And at 1 minute 27, 1 minute 25, we're just hearing now, he now has the pink jersey back again. And he might be able to hang on to it, but it's going to be very, very tough. Simoni hasn't given up yet.
Certainly not, and the interesting one for Savoldelli, we see Ardilla still, you know, piling on the pressure there and pushing, you know, putting in a very big effort, a very good pace here as we see it, and the gap coming down, and that's, you know, of major importance to Savoldelli here, that there's somebody will take the pace setting on the first 3 or 4 Ks of the climb, and I think that's going to be the difference between, you know, holding on to the jersey and losing.
It's just gone back up again to 1 minute 29. This is an ever-changing scenario we've got here, Sean. It's coming up, it's going down. The pendulum is swinging. First Savoldelli's way, then Simoni's way. It's still in Savoldelli's corner at the moment. Remember, he's got 2 minutes and 9 seconds to play with. He's currently 1:29 in arrears. Savoldelli, for the moment, is hanging on to leadership of this Giro d'Italia, but only by the skin of his teeth. As Rujano now, for the first time in this stage, with 5 kilometres to go, seems willing now to give a little bit of support to Simoni's efforts to make the gap back up to 2 minutes plus again. As we go back to Danilo Di Luca, he's piggy in the middle at the moment. Remember, that spell of cramp on the descent caused him to lose contact with Simoni and Rujano. He's now on his own in 3rd place on the stage at the moment. He'd dearly love to get that podium spot back, but it looks as though it's disappeared. It's going to be very hard for him now. So into the last 3 miles of this so exciting and dramatic mountain stage here in the Alps, in the northwest corner of Italy. It's the run into Milan tomorrow, 12 circuits of the city to the finish line, and the final checkered flag after 23 days and around about 3,500 kilometres of racing, almost 2,200 miles. And of course, this one of the 3 Grand Tours which many riders attempt to win each year. The Tours of France, Italy and Spain are all of a similar length these days. The Tour of Italy, the first of the 3 calendar-wise now, although of course the Tour of Spain used to start the 3 when it was in May at one time, then the Tour of Italy would be in June and the Tour de France in July. They were very tight together at one time. 1:27 the gap, it's still around about the same, and Rujano still leading Simoni, and is Rujano leading Simoni? Now Simoni looks as though he's struggling a little bit, and Rujano has gone up the road on Simoni, the little Venezuelan, attempting to win a mountaintop finish here and seal his glory as winner of the King of the Mountains.
Yes, Simoni definitely starting to suffer, and we could see, I said on the earlier slopes, he seemed to, you know, to look to be suffering a little bit, and Rujano just rides away from, takes, you know, foot by foot, metre by metre, he just disappears, and that's going to be an interesting one now, because if Simoni could stay with Rujano, well then, you know, it would be very important for him, but now on his own, and Savoldelli the advantage, because he has Ardilla, who is still riding very, very strong there, and Van Huffel also, the Honcha was also with him, so he has a few bodies with him, and if they do any little bit of pulling on the front at all, it's, you know, it's a big help at this stage in the race, as we see here at the moment. Still Ardilla very much setting the pace, a very strong looking one actually.
There's another factor emerging now, Sean, and that is who gets second and who gets third. At the moment, Simoni has 51 seconds advantage at the start of play today on this man here. Now, if Rujano can show us his mountain climbing again as he has done in the past, and if Simoni is struggling, maybe he can open up a 51-second gap from now to the finish. He's got about 4k to go. 51 seconds he could open up on Simoni, and this man could finish in second place overall come tomorrow in Milan.
Yes, everything is changing here, and the gap we're hearing at the moment, 8 seconds for Rujano on Simoni, so he's pulling away very, very quickly, and as you said, Mike, that gap for him, if he keeps working on that at that rate, well then it's very possible that he could go ahead of Simoni in the general classement.
What a revelation. He's your typical mountain climber, isn't he? He's about 7.5 stone soaking wet. No great weight to haul up the mountains, and he's making full use of it. And Simoni here clearly has worked wonders earlier in the stage to try desperately to open up the gap on the pink jersey. He's manfully tried, he's made it a fantastic effort. At one stage he had briefly got more than the 2 minutes 9 that he needed. That was at the top of the Col de Finestre, but he's seen that gap come down again. Savoldelli's fought back brilliantly in what is a stage, Sean, that's going to go down in the annals of the history of the Tour of Italy, of one of the most dramatic and fast-changing situations of a stage that we've had in recent years.
Yes, certainly all happening here today. It's amazing, in the general classement there's so much movement here, and Simoni looks to be struggling a lot, but Rujano, of course, and will he be able to hold on? Has he got enough power to stay out there? Because Simoni, sometimes we see him struggle a bit, but then he can recover again and come back. So maybe Simoni can finish stronger. Can Rujano hold on at this pace, because he is going very fast, and he went away from Simoni unbelievably fast there, pulled out that 8 seconds just immediately. So can he keep on doing that? Can he hold on to the finish?
So all sorts of combinations still possible. Savoldelli's hold on the pink jersey for the moment is just about secure, but nothing has been decided yet. Higher up the climb, Rujano, this little Venezuelan who rides for Cell Italia Colombia, having already clinched the King of the Mountains competition, is now in with a chance of getting a stage victory. Remember that Ivan Parra, his teammate, had 2 stage victories earlier at Ortisai and Livigno, stages 13 and 14. And would it be marvellous if this little team from Colombia, or the Colombian-based team, they're not all Colombians, if they could get a 3rd stage victory? They'll be going home with a fair pot of money, that's for sure, far more than I think they probably imagined 3 weeks ago.
Certainly, yes. They've been having a fabulous tour, and for a team like that, with such a small budget against the big budget teams, winning 2 stages, winning the mountain classement, 2 stages up to now, let's say, and also a place on the podium. What a tour for a team like that. I don't think they would ever have dreamt of having any sort of results like that. And I think before this Giro, if you said to them, will you sign just for a stage victory in this race, I think they would have signed immediately.
Yeah, you're probably right about that one. Meantime, the battle for the positions at the head of the general classification is continuing on the road up to Sestriere here. And it's still not decided. The final order is still not decided. Simoni, I think, might just have recovered a little bit from that bad spell he had lower down, where Rujano decided to forge on ahead. Here we see him, and to me, Sean, he looks as though he's come through that bad spell and is battling on. He knows he's got to limit his loss on Rujano to less than 51 seconds. 2.5 kilometres only for the leader to the finish. We're nearly up at the top of Sestriere. It looks as though Rujano may go on to win the stage, but behind him Simoni is limiting his losses well, although I think Simoni on the other hand also knows that behind him Paolo Savoldelli is doing his darndest to hang on to that pink jersey.
Yes, and interesting one there, we see Simoni on the big ring actually, and Savoldelli, he seems to be down on a smaller ring, so Simoni is just powering away there on the bigger ring, and but Rujano seems to be working quite well, and as I said, holding on, I'd say, to his advantage, if not pulling it out a bit more.
2 kilometres to go then for Rujano, who looks like he's going to join his teammate Ivan Parra as a stage winner.
and also on the big ring we see Rujano there, and that tells you about the climb. You know, the steepness of it is not it's not a majorly steep climb, and that's something which is really suiting Savoldelli, because it's a bigger gear job, and he, you know, climbs better on those sort of climbs.
Well, here on the higher slopes, it goes down 30 seconds. Well, it's still counting, in fact. This is going to be very, very close. It's going to be very close between Simoni and Rujano for second and third place. We just lost the time check for the moment. We might just get that over race radio. We'll listen out for it.
42, I think it was.
Well, if it gets to 51, then Rujano goes, or if it gets to 52 seconds, it was 51 this morning. If it gets to 52, then he's up into second place. I was just going to say that in the last 2 kilometres, Sean, it does ease off a little bit to about 5%, 4.6%, and the last kilometre, in fact, is more or less level ground right on top of the plateau in the Olympic village of Sestriere. I say Olympic village because, of course, the Winter Olympics are taking place here next winter. Although Turin is officially the Olympic city, most of the skiing events obviously will be based on this ski resort of Sestriere next winter.
Yes, of course, you know, all the sports, the winter sports will be there at the altitude. Di Luca, 125 behind for Di Luca, but again, the group here quite a good group with Savoldelli. A number of riders hanging in there, and we see Ardilla, who is making an enormous amount of work. Of course, his teammate there, Van Huffel, is, you know, sitting in there, and he's pulling this group along at a very good pace, and it's of a major importance to Savoldelli that he's been there, because otherwise would have to do all the working on his own. .156 they're coming over here with. I presume that's back to Savoldelli, actually. So if it is, he's doing quite well, and they're limiting the losses. Of course, Simoni was 30 seconds, so that means 126 for Savoldelli on Simoni. Savoldelli coming back, the group of Savoldelli pulling back all the time on Simoni at the moment.
Well, Simoni is still giving it everything he's got, but he's not going to catch up with that fella. I'm quite sure that Rujano is going to win the stage, I think. In fact, Simoni's actually just closed the gap a little. I'm hearing it's now less than 30 seconds between the two of them.
23.
23, well, do you think he could catch him? It's quite a bit close now. I think he's got past the steepest part now, and I'm sure that he is going to come away. And this will be his first victory away from his home country in Venezuela. He's had 1 or 2 professional wins in his home country, but never before has he had a professional win over here in Europe, where, of course, the vast majority of the top-class professional UCI-registered races take place. And here he is coming up to the finish after more than 5 3/4 hours for a famous victory for him. And of course, King of the Mountains points, still again he's getting King of the Mountains points by finishing up here at Sestriere. Nobody can touch him in that competition. Of course, this is the last mountain of the whole of the Giro d'Italia for 2005 anyway. And what a better way to clinch that particular section of the race by winning the last climb, which wins him his first stage in Europe in solo fashion. This little fella from Venezuela coming home to the applause of the Tifosi here, who I'm sure are absolutely delighted to see this Selitalia Colombia team riding so well here. He's still giving everything he's got here to try and put as much time as possible into his rivals. And there it is, the win for José Rujano, one of the revelations of the race. The Selitalia Colombia rider clinching victory in the thick end of 6 hours of racing. And behind him, here comes Gilberto Simoni, doing his best to limit the time gap, and it's crucial that he crosses the line within 51 seconds of Rujano. I'm sure he's going to do that. He crosses the line now at just about 25 seconds, so he's done enough to hang on ahead of Rujano in the general classification, but of course we now have to wait and see what the time gap is back to Paolo Savoldelli. There is the pink jersey as Danilo Di Luca, who suffered cramp a little earlier on, comes to the finish in third place, so he will hold his place in the general classification. That's the 1, 2, 3 on the stage: Rujano, Simoni and Di Luca. And there we see Danilo Di Luca just coming round the last couple of bends now. He's made such a brave effort to get back onto the podium, but I think the cramp was his downfall in the end. A sad state of affairs for him. Nonetheless, this really has been a very, very successful Tour of Italy, really, for Danilo Di Luca. I think if you'd said to him at the start, Sean, 3 weeks ago, hey fella, we'll give you fourth place, hey? Yes. He'd have said, yeah, I'll take that.
Yes, definitely, because as we've said, you know, he hasn't been up in the big tours, but a fabulous race and getting through the mountains so strongly, as we see Savoldelli's group coming in here.
Well, Garate is going to take that'll be fourth place, just ahead of the rest of the group. But the crucial thing is the time for Savoldelli, and they're going to be timed in at 1:55. I make it, give or take a second. That is enough, so long as it was within 2 minutes and 9. His pink jersey was safe, but there. Well, there are several. I was going to say there's the hero of the day, but Sean, this has been such a dramatic stage today. There have been so many heroes of today.
Yes, you know, what a stage, and there have been so much to play for, and everybody, a lot of the riders, let's say, have went out and fought for, as we said, Rujano. I think you know, he thought when he went away that he could pull more out, but Simoni recovered well, and Savoldelli, you know, what a ride by him. You know, really suffered in the climb up to Finestre, but covered very well, and luckily that there was riders with him in the end, and that, I think, you know, was part of the saving of the day for him.
Well, here we see this high up in the mountains ski resort of Sestriere, home to stage finishes of both the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France, when the Tour de France has crossed the border. And it's going to be jam-packed full of winter sports followers next winter when the Olympic Games, the Winter Olympics, come here. But Paolo Savoldelli right now, I imagine, breathing a huge sigh of relief.
Definitely, you know, when you look back at where he was on that climb, as I said, the second last climb of the day, you know, totally isolated, no rider there with him to give him a hand, and you know, the way he worked on it, you know, worked very hard on that climb and came back so strongly.
Well, there you see the official timing. Savoldelli timed in at 1:55, as I said, and that was just inside what he had to finish in. 1 minute 55 is fine. 2 minutes 10 would have been utter disaster, and I should imagine that all the Italians who are up here will be delighted with what they've seen. In fact, any true cycling follower, I think, has had more than value for money watching this 19th and penultimate stage of the Tour of Italy. It's been a phenomenally exciting day. There are many, many riders still to finish, but all the leading lights have already come to the line, and that's the most important thing. But of course, well, here's one of the Panarias, I think it is, just coming to the line. And that, I think, will be Manuel, who was with the chase group earlier on in the day, but he's lost 4.5 minutes and more coming to the line now. And for Fassa, Brzezikin has lost time too. A lot of the big names have had to fall by the wayside in the wake of all the various attacks by the leading lights and the efforts they have made to change the general classification. In the end, there has been no change in the general classification. We'll have that confirmed, I think, fairly soon. Okay, the time gaps are different, but the fact of the matter is, subject to confirmation, I say, that at the end of this penultimate stage, it is still Savoldelli from Simoni, from Rujano, from Di Luca. And Danilo Di Luca just being denied a chance of getting a place on the podium. He was in third place for some considerable time some days ago through the Dolomites and into the transitional stages, but the effort of trying to defend that third place, just proving too much for him in the end. Paolo Savoldelli, though, looks now like being the winner of this Tour of Italy for the second time, but there is the hero of the day. José Rujano for Selle Italia Colombia, winning this penultimate mountain stage. What a day it's been.